My husband smiled at me every day, while secretly building a life with another woman. I didn't cry when I found out. I planned something much worse instead, and it started with his biggest enemy. The first crack in my marriage didn't come with a scream or a dramatic confession. It came quietly, like a whisper that refused to be ignored. It was a Thursday evening when I first felt it. The house smelled faintly of burnt garlic. Dinner ruined because I had been too distracted, staring at my husband's phone lighting up again and again on the kitchen counter. Ethan, my husband of 7 years, the man I had built my entire world around. "Are you going to get that?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Just work," he muttered. Work. That word had become his shield, his excuse, his escape. I wiped my hands slowly on a towel, watching him from across the kitchen. His jaw was tighter than usual, his shoulders stiff. The man who once couldn't go a day without holding me now barely met my eyes. Something inside me twisted. That night I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan hummed softly above me, but my mind was loud, too loud. At 2:17 a.m., his phone buzzed again. This time I didn't hesitate. My heart pounded, so hard I thought it might wake him. Carefully, I slipped out of bed and picked up his phone from the nightstand. Locked. Of course it was locked. But Ethan had always been predictable. My fingers trembled as I typed in the passcode, my birthday. It worked. And just like that, my world ended. Messages flooded the screen. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Her name was Lena. I didn't know her. But I didn't need to. "I missed last night. She has no idea, does she? When are you leaving her?" My throat went dry. Each message felt like a knife, carving deeper and deeper into something I didn't even realize was still fragile. 7 years. 7 years reduced to lies hidden behind late-night work calls. I scrolled further, unable to stop myself, even though every word was breaking me. Photos. Laughing selfies. Hotel rooms. His arm around her waist, the same way he used to hold me. I dropped the phone. The silence in the room was deafening. I turned to look at him, sleeping peacefully, as if he hadn't just destroyed everything we had ever built. How could he look so calm while I was falling apart? Tears slipped silently down my face, but something strange happened in that moment. I didn't scream. I didn't wake him up. I didn't confront him. Instead, I smiled, not because I was okay, but because something inside me had shifted. Something cold, something dangerous. By morning, I was a different woman. At breakfast, I placed his coffee in front of him like always. Toast, eggs, everything perfect. "Big day today?" I asked lightly. He nodded, barely glancing at me. "Yeah, meetings." "Of course," I said softly. "Meetings. With her." I watched him leave, the sound of the door clicking shut echoing through the house like the final chapter of a life I used to believe in. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because if Ethan thought I was going to break, if he thought I was going to cry and beg and fall apart, he didn't know me at all. I walked back into the bedroom, picked up his phone again, and stared at the messages. One name stood out. Not Lena, but someone else. Someone mentioned only a few times, but always with tension. "If he finds out, we're done. You know how dangerous he is." His name was Adrian Cole, Ethan's rival, his enemy, the man he hated more than anyone else. And in that moment, a thought crossed my mind so dark, so reckless, it made my pulse quicken. What if I didn't just expose Ethan? What if I destroyed him? Slowly, deliberately, completely. And maybe, just maybe, I knew exactly where to start. The name Adrian Cole lingered in my mind like a dangerous secret I wasn't supposed to touch. For 2 days I did nothing. At least, that's what Ethan thought. I cooked. I smiled. I asked about his meetings. I even laughed at his dry jokes like the perfect, unaware wife he believed I still was. But inside I was watching, listening, learning. Because revenge isn't about impulse. It's about timing. And I needed to understand him first. Adrian Cole, the man Ethan feared, the man he hated enough to mention even in whispers. I found him the way most people find trouble, through careful curiosity. A quick search turned into hours of digging. Business articles, interviews, photos from events. He wasn't just some random rival. He was powerful. Sharp eyes, controlled expressions, A man who looked like he never made a mistake, and never forgave one either. The kind of man you don't approach unless you're ready to lose everything. Perfect. 3 nights later, I stood outside a luxury hotel downtown, the kind of place I had only visited on anniversaries, back when Ethan still pretended to love me. The air smelled of expensive perfume and polished marble. Soft golden lights spilled through the glass entrance, wrapping everything in an illusion of elegance and control. Inside, a corporate networking event was in full swing, and Adrian Cole was there. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I stepped in, each sound echoing louder than my racing heartbeat. I could feel eyes on me, but I didn't look around. I had one target, and then I saw him, standing near the bar, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, speaking calmly to a group of men who seemed to hang on his every word. Adrian Cole. Even from a distance, there was something intimidating about him. Not loud, not aggressive, just controlled, like a storm that didn't need to prove its power. For a moment, doubt crept in. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't manipulative. No. That version of me died the night I read those messages. I took a breath and walked toward him. Each step felt heavier than the last, but I didn't stop. When I finally reached him, he noticed me instantly. His conversation paused, not awkwardly but intentionally. His eyes locked onto mine. Cold, observant, dangerous. Yes, he said simply. No smile, no curiosity, just a single word that carried weight. Good. I need to speak with you, I replied, keeping my voice steady. His gaze flickered, scanning my face like he was already trying to figure me out. About. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough so only he could hear. Ethan. That got his attention. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not surprise, not exactly. Interest. He dismissed the others with a subtle gesture, and within seconds we were alone. Careful, he said quietly, his tone sharp. You're stepping into something you don't understand. I held his gaze. Then help me understand. A long silence stretched between us. The noise of the party faded into the background, replaced by the tension building in the space between us. You're his wife, he said finally. It wasn't a question. I nodded. And you're here why? He asked. There it was, the moment that would define everything. I could lie. I could pretend. But instead, I told the truth. Because he's cheating on me, I said, my voice calm but firm. And I don't want to just leave him. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you want then? I stepped closer, close enough to feel the quiet intensity radiating from him. I want to ruin him. The words hung in the air, heavier than anything I had ever said before. For a second, I thought he might laugh, but he didn't. Instead, he studied me deeply, as if trying to decide whether I was serious or completely insane. Revenge, he said slowly. Yes. He exhaled softly, almost amused, but not quite. You're playing a dangerous game. I already lost everything, I replied. What's left to be afraid of? That made him pause, and then something unexpected happened. He smiled, not warmly, not kindly, but like a man who had just found something interesting. All right, Adrian said. Let's say I believe you. He stepped closer now, closing the distance between us. Why would I help you? I didn't hesitate. Because hurting Ethan helps you too. Silence again. But this time, it felt different. Charged. Calculated. He tilted his head slightly, eyes never leaving mine. And what makes you think I won't destroy you along with him? A chill ran down my spine. But I didn't step back. Because I understood something now. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was a deal with something far more dangerous. Because, I said quietly, I'm the only one who can get close enough to him without him suspecting anything. Adrian watched me for a long moment. Then finally, interesting, he murmured. And just like that, everything changed. Because in that moment, I didn't just choose revenge. I chose him. I should have felt afraid after that night. But fear is strange. It doesn't always arrive when it should. Instead, I felt something else. Clarity. Adrian Cole didn't call me for 2 days after the hotel meeting. No messages. No instructions. Nothing. It was as if he had erased me from his world entirely. And yet, I couldn't erase him from mine. Everywhere I went, I felt his presence lingering like unfinished business. Ethan, on the other hand, was becoming more careless. That's how I knew something was shifting. He started coming home later, smelling slightly different, like expensive cologne that wasn't his. His phone never left his hand anymore, even in the bathroom. And for the first time in years, he stopped pretending. He thought I was blind. But I wasn't blind. I was watching everything. One evening, I stood in our living room as rain pressed against the windows like restless fingers. The house felt colder now, emptier, even when he was inside it. Ethan loosened his tie, dropping his briefcase by the couch. "You've been quiet lately," he said without looking at me. I smiled gently. "Just tired." He nodded, already distracted, already gone somewhere else in his mind, somewhere I was no longer part of. That night, when he fell asleep, I waited. Then I moved. His phone was unlocked again. Carelessness or arrogance, I didn't know anymore. But this time, I didn't go to Lena's messages. I went deeper. And that's when I found it. A hidden thread of conversations. Not romantic. Not emotional. Business. Meetings. Transfers. Names of companies I had never heard before. And one recurring pattern. Adrian Cole is moving faster than expected. My pulse slowed. So this wasn't just personal. It was war. And I was standing in the middle of it. The next morning, I received a message. Unknown number. 7 p.m. Glass Tower Cafe. Don't be late. No name. But I already knew. Adrian. At exactly 7 p.m., I stood outside the Glass Tower Cafe. It was perched high above the city, glass walls reflecting the fading sunset like burning gold. Inside, everything looked too clean, too controlled. Soft music, polished tables, the scent of espresso and money. And there he was, Adrian Cole, sitting alone by the window, watching the city like it belonged to him. He didn't look up when I approached. "You came," he said calmly. I said I would. That finally made him look at me. His eyes were sharper today, less curious, more assessing. "You've been quiet," he said. "That usually means people are either planning something or regretting it." I sat across from him. "Neither," I replied. "I've been learning." A faint smirk touched his lips. Good answer. A waiter brought coffee. Neither of us touched it. Instead, Adrian slid a thin file across the table. "Ethan isn't just cheating on you," he said. "He's been building something behind your back for months." My fingers tightened slightly. "What kind of something?" Adrian leaned back, studying me like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. "A takeover," he said simply. "Mine." The words hit heavier than I expected. So this wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. And I wasn't just a wife. I was collateral. I opened the file. Documents. Financial trails. Emails. Proof of manipulation. Hidden investments. Fake partnerships. Ethan wasn't just lying to me emotionally. He was using my entire life as cover. My stomach twisted, but I didn't look away. When I finally closed the file, my hands were steady. Adrian noticed. "You're not shocked," he said. "I am," I replied. "Just not broken." That made something shift in his expression again. Interest deepening. "Good," he said quietly. "Because if you want to survive this, you'll need more than emotions." I met his gaze. "And what do you need?" Silence stretched between us. Then he said it. "Ethan trusts you." My chest tightened slightly. "Not anymore," I said. Adrian's eyes didn't blink. "He thinks he does," he corrected. "That's enough." A pause. Then the real question. "Are you ready to destroy your husband?" I should have hesitated. A normal woman would have. But I wasn't living a normal life anymore. I thought about Lena, about the messages, about the lies wrapped around 7 years of my life like a slow poison. And I nodded. Yes. Adrian studied me for a long moment. Then he stood. "Then we start tonight." As he walked away, I realized something unsettling. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was becoming something else. Something larger. Something that didn't belong to either of us anymore. And I was no longer sure if I was controlling the game or already inside it. The first rule of revenge is simple. Never let your target see the change coming. So I didn't change overnight. I stayed the same wife Ethan thought he still had. I still made his coffee in the morning. Still asked him about his day. Still smiled at the right moments like nothing inside me was burning alive. But now, Every gesture was calculated. Every word had a purpose. And Ethan, blinded by his own arrogance, never noticed the shift. Adrian, on the other hand, became a shadow in my life. We didn't meet often, only when necessary, but his presence lingered in everything I did, like an invisible hand guiding pieces on a board I was only beginning to understand. The city itself started to feel different. At night, when I looked out from my bedroom window, the lights of the skyline no longer felt beautiful. They felt like surveillance, like everything was watching everything else. And I was finally learning how deep the system went. One evening, Ethan came home earlier than usual. Too early. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, when I felt his presence before I saw him. "You've been going out more," he said casually. My knife paused for half a second, then continued. "Just meeting a friend," I replied softly. "A friend," he repeated, leaning against the doorway. I could feel his eyes on me now, studying, searching. I smiled slightly. "You don't like that?" He walked closer. "No," he said, "just curious." There it was, the word he always used when suspicion was really starting to form. Curious. He stood behind me now, too close. For a moment, I thought he might ask something real, something dangerous. But instead, he kissed my shoulder lightly, the same way he used to, and I almost flinched. Almost, because now I knew what that touch meant. Control, ownership, performance. "I've been under a lot of pressure lately," he said. "Things are moving fast at work." I nodded gently. "I understand, but I didn't understand. Not anymore. Because I knew what work really meant now." That night, when he fell asleep, I checked my phone. One message. "Adrian. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Don't tell him anything." No explanation. No details. Just command. And I obeyed, because at this point, I wasn't sure who I was more afraid of losing control to, my husband or the man helping me destroy him. The next morning, I told Ethan I had a headache and stayed home. At 9:45 a.m., a black car stopped outside our house. The driver didn't speak. I didn't ask questions. The city passed in blurred silence as we drove toward the outskirts, far from the polished glass towers, far from the life I had known. Eventually, the car stopped in front of an old industrial building. It looked abandoned, but I knew better now. Nothing around Adrian Cole was ever truly abandoned. Inside, the air was colder. Metal stairs, dim lighting, the faint hum of servers somewhere deeper in the building. And there he was. Adrian stood near a large screen, displaying data I couldn't fully understand. Financial charts, names, connections. He didn't turn immediately. "You're early," he said. "I don't like being late," I replied. That finally made him face me. His expression was unreadable. "You're nervous," he observed. "I'm not," I said. A pause. Then he stepped closer. "Good," he said, "because this is where it begins." He turned the screen toward me. Ethan's name was everywhere. Connections, transactions, patterns. But there was something else. A timeline. And at the end of it, a collapse. I stared at it. "What is this?" I asked quietly. "This," Adrian said, "is what your husband has been building, and what we're about to dismantle." I looked at him sharply. "We." He met my gaze without hesitation. "You're already inside it," he said. "The moment he chose to betray you, you stopped being just his wife." Silence filled the room. Heavy. Final. Then I asked the question I didn't really want answered. "What happens to me after?" For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Not emotion exactly, but recognition. "You survive," he said simply. "That's not an answer," I replied. He stepped closer again, close enough that I could feel the tension between us shift. "It's the only one you need." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the machines filled the silence like a heartbeat. Then he added quietly, "And Ethan will never see it coming." Something inside me tightened, because I realized then, this wasn't just revenge anymore. It was transformation, and I was standing at the edge of becoming someone I no longer recognized. Someone who could look at destruction, and not look away. The night everything ended didn't arrive with noise. It arrived with silence. The kind of silence that feels too intentional, like the world is holding its breath before something breaks. Ethan left home earlier than usual that evening. No explanation. No kiss goodbye. Just a distracted glance at his phone and the familiar excuse. Late meeting. I nodded like I always did. But this time, I didn't watch him leave from the window. I already knew where he was going. And so did Adrian. The industrial building felt different that night. Colder. Sharper. As if even the air understood what was about to happen. Adrian stood in front of the screens again, hands behind his back, watching the final sequence unfold like he had seen it 1,000 times before. You don't have to be here, he said without turning. I know, I replied, but I stayed anyway, because I needed to see it. Not for him, not for Ethan, for myself. The room was filled with faint electronic sounds, alerts, transfers, confirmations, everything moving invisibly, like fate rearranging itself in real time. Then Adrian spoke. It's done. Just 2 words, but they carried weight like a closing door. On the screen, Ethan's empire, built on secrets, lies, and stolen trust, began collapsing piece by piece. Accounts frozen, deals reversed, evidence released at the exact right moments to the exact right people. A perfectly timed unraveling. No chaos, just precision, and destruction that felt almost elegant. I should have felt relief. I should have felt victory. But I didn't. Instead, I felt something hollow open inside me. A space I didn't know was still there. Adrian watched me now, quietly. You expected something else, he asked. I didn't answer immediately, because I didn't know what I had expected. Pain, justice, closure, or maybe just the illusion that ending him would fix what he broke inside me. I don't feel anything, I admitted finally. That's normal, he said. No, I replied softly. This doesn't feel like winning. A pause. Then footsteps. Behind us, the main screen flickered. A new alert. Ethan calling emergency contact. My chest tightened slightly. Adrian didn't move. Answer it, he said calmly. I hesitated. Then I did. The moment I pressed accept, Ethan's voice cracked through the silence. Broken, panicked, unfamiliar. What did you do? No greeting. No confusion. Just accusation. I closed my eyes for a second. So he knew. Of course he knew. You did this, he said again, louder now. My accounts are frozen. My deals are gone. Everything is collapsing. I looked at Adrian. He gave no reaction. Only silence. Ethan's breathing was heavy through the phone. Then came the words that stayed with me longer than anything else. You ruined me for him. A pause. Even he knew. Even in chaos, he understood. I didn't deny it, but I didn't answer either. Because the truth was heavier than anything I could say out loud. Ethan laughed bitterly on the other end. Do you even know what he is? He said. You think he helped you? You think this is love? He destroys everything he touches. My eyes flicked to Adrian. Still calm, still unreadable. Ethan's voice softened now, not angry anymore. Just broken. I made mistakes, he said. But you didn't have to burn everything. A long silence followed, and for a moment, I almost saw him again. Not the liar, not the stranger, but the man I once built a life around. Then I remembered Lena. The messages, the hotel rooms, the lies stacked like corpses of everything we were supposed to be. And the image disappeared. I didn't burn it, I said quietly. You did. Then I ended the call. The room fell into silence again. Heavier this time. Real. Adrian finally turned toward me. You regret it, he said. It wasn't a question. I shook my head slightly. No, I replied. I regret how empty it feels. Something shifted in his expression then. Just briefly. Like he understood more than he wanted to admit. Outside, the city lights blinked endlessly. Unaware, untouched. Inside, everything had already ended. Or maybe begun. Because as I stood there, I realized something terrifying. Revenge doesn't end the story. It removes one version of it and forces you to live inside whatever remains. And what remained of me was no longer the woman Ethan married, or even the woman who wanted revenge. I turned to leave, but Adrian spoke one last time. You could stay, he said. I paused, not turning back. That's not my life anymore, I replied. Silence. Then his voice, lower now. Then what is? I looked out at the city one final time. The same city that had watched me fall apart and rebuild myself into something I didn't fully understand. I don't know yet, I said, and for the first time, That uncertainty didn't scare me. I walked out into the night. The air was cold, but I didn't feel it, because somewhere between betrayal and revenge, I had lost the person I used to be. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real ending, or the beginning of something far more dangerous.